Sarah Martinez had always been different. Growing up in a small Texas town where football was king and girls were expected to cheer from the sidelines, she chose the weight room over pom-poms. Her father, a retired Marine, taught her that strength wasn't just about muscle, it was about heart, determination, and refusing to quit when everyone else said you couldn't make it. The military recruiter looked skeptical when Sarah walked into his office on a hot August morning in 2018. She was barely 5 feet 4 inches tall, with a slight frame that seemed more suited for a dance studio than a battlefield. But her eyes held something the recruiter had seen in only the best soldiers, an unwavering determination that couldn't be taught or faked. "I want to join the Navy," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "I want to be a special warfare candidate." The recruiter, Petty Officer Johnson, had been doing this job for 12 years. He'd seen thousands of young people walk through his door with dreams of military glory, only to wash out during basic training. But something about Sarah made him pause. Maybe it was the way she stood straight-backed and confident, or the fact that she'd already researched every aspect of special warfare training before stepping foot in his office. "Ma'am, I have to be honest with you," Johnson said carefully. "Special warfare is the most demanding program in the Navy. The physical requirements are significant. Have you considered other career fields that might be more suitable?" Sarah's jaw tightened. She'd heard variations of this speech her entire life. Too small for varsity sports. Too weak for construction work. Too fragile for the Marines. She was tired of people making assumptions based on her appearance. "I understand the requirements," she replied. "I've been preparing for 2 years. I run 6 miles every morning, I can do 50 push-ups, and I've been studying military history and tactics since I was 16. I'm not here because I think it will be easy. I'm here because I know it will be the hardest thing I've ever done, and I'm ready for that challenge." Johnson studied her for a long moment. In his experience, the loudest, most muscular recruits were often the first to quit when things got tough. Sometimes the quiet, determined ones surprised everyone. He pulled out the paperwork. "All right, Miss Martinez. Let's see what you're made of." The next 6 months were a whirlwind of preparation. Sarah threw herself into training with an intensity that impressed even her most skeptical gym partners. She worked with a former SEAL who ran a civilian training program, learning everything from combat swimming to tactical firearms handling. She studied leadership principles, memorized military protocols, and pushed her body to limits she never knew existed. Her family had mixed reactions to her decision. Her father beamed with pride, remembering his own military service and the bonds forged in shared struggle. Her mother worried constantly, knowing the dangers that lay ahead but also understanding her daughter's fierce determination. Her younger brother thought she was crazy but secretly admired her courage. The day finally came for Sarah to ship out to basic training. As she stood in the airport, duffel bag in hand, she thought about all the people who had doubted her along the way. Teachers who suggested she consider more realistic career options. Friends who thought she was trying to prove something. Even some family members who worried she was setting herself up for heartbreak. But Sarah knew something they didn't understand. She wasn't trying to prove she was strong, she was trying to become stronger. There was a difference between wanting to show off and wanting to serve something bigger than yourself. She had watched her father struggle with the demons of war, but she had also seen the pride in his eyes when he talked about his fellow Marines. She wanted to be part of something that mattered. Basic training at Great Lakes Naval Station was everything the recruiters had warned her about and more. The drill instructors seemed determined to break her spirit from day one. They questioned her motivation, her capability, and her right to be there. Other recruits looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Some were supportive, recognizing a fellow warrior regardless of size. Others whispered that she was taking up a spot that belonged to someone who could actually handle the job. Sarah endured it all with quiet determination. When the physical training became brutal, she dug deeper. When the academic work piled up, she studied longer. When homesickness threatened to overwhelm her, she reminded herself why she was there. She wasn't just representing herself, she was representing every girl who had been told she wasn't strong enough, every woman who had been underestimated, every person who refused to let other people's limitations become their own. The real test came during the combat readiness assessment. It was designed to weed out candidates who couldn't handle the stress and physical demands of military operations. Sarah found herself lined up with 40 other recruits, all of whom seemed bigger, stronger, and more confident than she felt. The assessment began with a 5-mile run in full gear. Sarah had trained for this moment for months, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of running with a 40-pound pack in the humid Illinois heat while drill instructors screamed at her to move faster. One by one, recruits began to fall behind. Some dropped out entirely, unable to maintain the punishing pace. Sarah focused on her breathing and her form, just like her trainer had taught her. She didn't try to keep up with the fastest runners, she focused on maintaining a steady pace that she could sustain. By mile 3, she had passed several recruits who had started strong but were now struggling. By mile 4, she was in the top third of the group. When she crossed the finish line, she was the 7th person to complete the run, ahead of recruits who were twice her size. The drill instructor who had been most critical of her presence looked genuinely surprised. "Not bad, Martinez," he said grudgingly. "Don't let it go to your head. The day's just getting started." The obstacle course was next. Sarah had practiced similar challenges during her civilian training, but military obstacles were designed to test not just physical ability but mental toughness and teamwork. She watched as other recruits tackled the rope climb, some making it look effortless while others struggled and eventually gave up. When her turn came, Sarah approached the rope with the technique her trainer had drilled into her. She wrapped her legs properly, used her core strength to maintain stability, and climbed hand over hand with smooth, efficient movements. She reached the top in less than 30 seconds, faster than all but 2 of the other recruits. But the real challenge came at the team obstacle, a 12-foot wall that required recruits to work together to get everyone over. Sarah knew this would be the moment when her size would either be an advantage or a fatal disadvantage. As the smallest member of her team, she could either be the weak link that held everyone back, or she could find a way to contribute that others couldn't. She studied the wall and the other members of her team, quickly formulating a plan. "Listen," she said, taking charge in a way that surprised even herself. "Johnson and Williams, you're the tallest. You boost the rest of us up, then we help pull you over. I'll go first to secure the rope on the other side." Some of the bigger recruits looked skeptical. Why should they listen to the smallest person in the group? But Sarah's confidence and clear thinking had impressed them during the earlier challenges. They decided to trust her judgment. The plan worked perfectly. Sarah's light weight made her easy to boost up, and her upper body strength allowed her to quickly secure the rope and help pull up the next recruits. When it came time to help the biggest team members over the wall, she positioned herself strategically to provide leverage rather than trying to lift their full weight. Her team completed the obstacle in record time. As they moved through the rest of the course, crawling under barbed wire, navigating balance beams, carrying injured casualties, Sarah continued to prove that size wasn't everything. She was faster than most in tight spaces, her endurance was exceptional, and her problem-solving skills helped the team overcome obstacles that initially seemed impossible. By the end of the day, Sarah had not only passed the combat readiness assessment, she had excelled. Her overall score placed her in the top 10% of all recruits, male and female. More importantly, she had earned the respect of her peers and even her harshest critics among the drill instructors. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Basic training was designed to prepare sailors for military life, but special warfare training was where dreams went to die. The statistics were sobering: less than 20% of candidates successfully completed the program. The physical demands were extreme, the mental pressure was crushing, and the margin for error was non-existent. As she lay in her bunk that night, surrounded by the quiet breathing of her fellow recruits, Sarah thought about the journey ahead. She had proven she belonged here, but that was just the first step. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new doubts, and new opportunities to either rise to the occasion or wash out like so many others before her. She thought about her father's words from the night before she left home: "The military will test everything you think you know about yourself. It will push you past your limits and then push you some more." But if you remember why you're there, if you remember that it's not about proving you're tough enough, but about becoming someone worthy of the trust others place in you, then you'll find strength you never knew you had. Sarah drifted off to sleep, her mind already focused on the challenges ahead. She had won the first battle, but the war for her place in special warfare was just beginning. Tomorrow, she would take the next step toward a destiny that no one, including herself, could have imagined when she first walked into that recruiter's office. The quiet confidence that had carried her this far would need to grow into something stronger. Because soon, she would find herself in situations where her life and the lives of others would depend on abilities that couldn't be measured in a gym or demonstrated on an obstacle course. She would need to prove herself worthy of standing alongside the most elite warriors in the world. And, somewhere in the back of her mind, she wondered if she truly had what it took to make it all the way. 6 months after graduating basic training with honors, Sarah found herself standing on the beach at Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, staring at the Pacific Ocean that would become both her greatest challenge and her proving ground. The Special Warfare Training Command was where legends were born and dreams were shattered, often within the same week. She wasn't alone in her nervousness. Around her stood 23 other sailors, all volunteers for what many considered the most demanding military training program in the world. They came from different backgrounds, some were fresh from basic training like Sarah, others were fleet sailors looking for a new challenge, and a few were prior service Marines who thought they knew what tough looked like. What united them all was a combination of ambition and naivety that would be systematically stripped away over the coming months. They all believed they were ready. None of them truly understood what they were about to endure. Instructor Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez had been running special warfare candidates through hell for 8 years. He had seen every type of recruit imaginable, the cocky ones who thought their college football experience made them warriors, the quiet ones who surprised everyone with their resilience, and the unfortunate ones who realized within days that they had made a terrible mistake. When he looked at Sarah during the initial briefing, he saw someone who didn't fit any of his usual categories. She was smaller than any candidate he had ever trained, but she carried herself with a confidence that suggested she understood exactly what she had signed up for. Her file was impressive: top 10% in basic training, excellent academic scores, and glowing recommendations from her instructors. Still, files didn't swim in 60-degree water for hours or carry boat crews through surf that could drown the unprepared. "Ladies and gentlemen," Rodriguez began, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had earned his respect through action rather than rank, "welcome to the most challenging training program in the United States military. Over the next 6 months, we will test your physical capabilities, your mental toughness, and your ability to work as part of a team under extreme stress." He paused, making eye contact with each candidate. "Statistics say that 18 of you will quit before graduation. Statistics say that only 5 or 6 of you have what it takes to earn the Special Warfare designation. Statistics say that some of you will wash out before the end of this week." Sarah felt her stomach tighten, but she kept her expression neutral. She had read about the attrition rates, studied the training curriculum, and even spoken with a few graduates who had shared their experiences. But hearing it stated so bluntly by someone who would actively work to break her made it feel much more real. "Your first challenge begins now," Rodriguez continued. "You will complete a 2-mile ocean swim, followed by a 4-mile run on the beach, followed by an obstacle course that will test everything you think you learned in basic training. This is not a race, it is an assessment of your current capabilities. Some of you will struggle. Some of you will quit. For those who continue, understand that today represents the easiest day of your training." The ocean swim was unlike anything Sarah had experienced. The water was shockingly cold, even with a wetsuit, and the waves seemed designed to push swimmers off course and drain their energy. She had trained in open water during her preparation, but the Pacific Ocean was a different beast entirely. She focused on her technique and breathing, trying to maintain a steady pace while conserving energy for the challenges ahead. Around her, other candidates struggled with the conditions. She could see 2 swimmers who had already stopped and were being picked up by safety boats, their training over before it had really begun. Sarah's smaller size actually worked to her advantage in the water. She was more buoyant than the larger candidates, and her efficient stroke allowed her to maintain speed without burning unnecessary energy. By the time she reached the halfway point, she realized she was keeping pace with the strongest swimmers in the group. The real test came during the second half of the swim. The cold had sapped everyone's strength, and the waves had grown more challenging. Sarah's legs began to cramp, and her shoulders ached with each stroke. She could hear one candidate behind her calling for help, his voice barely audible over the sound of the waves. This was the moment that separated those who belonged from those who didn't. Sarah could have maintained her pace and focused solely on her own performance. Instead, she made a decision that would define her entire military career. She turned back toward the struggling candidate, reaching him just as he was beginning to panic in the water. "Hey, you're okay," she called out, treading water beside him. "Cramps?" The candidate, a former college wrestler named Davis, nodded frantically. Can't feel my legs." Sarah knew that helping him might cost her valuable time and energy. She also knew that leaving a teammate behind went against everything she believed about military service. "Stay calm. Float on your back and let me help you stretch them out." Working together, they managed to relieve Davis's cramps enough for him to continue swimming. Sarah stayed beside him for the remainder of the course, offering encouragement and guidance. They finished the swim together, not among the leaders but, well within the acceptable time limit. Chief Rodriguez had watched the entire interaction from the safety boat. In 8 years of running candidates through training, he had seen plenty of impressive individual performances. But he had rarely seen someone sacrifice their own standing to help a teammate during the first day of training. It suggested a maturity and understanding of military values that couldn't be taught. The beach run that followed was pure misery. Running 4 miles in sand while wearing wet clothes and boots was designed to test mental toughness as much as physical conditioning. Sarah's legs felt like concrete, and her lungs burned with each breath of the salty air. But she had learned something important during the swim. Training wasn't just about individual achievement, it was about becoming part of something bigger. As other candidates began to struggle during the run, she offered encouragement, shared water when someone was overheating, and even helped pace a few runners who were falling behind. Her performance during the obstacle course was nothing short of remarkable. The course was designed to test every aspect of physical fitness: upper body strength, agility, balance, and coordination. Sarah's gymnastics background served her well, allowing her to navigate obstacles that challenged much larger candidates. But it was her performance during the team challenges that really caught the attention of the instructors. When her boat crew was struggling to carry their rubber boat through deep sand, Sarah positioned herself strategically to maximize her leverage rather than trying to match the lifting power of her larger teammates. When they hit the surf, she used her swimming skills to help guide the boat through waves that had capsized other crews. By the end of the first day, 4 candidates had already dropped out. Sarah was not only still in the program, she was emerging as one of the natural leaders in her class. Her combination of physical capability, mental toughness, and team-first attitude made her someone that other candidates looked to for guidance and support. But if the first day had been challenging, the first week was a systematic assault on everything the candidates thought they knew about their own limitations. The instructors seemed determined to find each person's breaking point and, then, push them beyond it. The infamous surf torture sessions involved sitting in the frigid Pacific Ocean for hours while waves crashed over the candidates' heads. The cold was so intense that thinking became difficult, and simple tasks like tying knots or following instructions required tremendous concentration. Sarah discovered that her smaller body mass meant she lost heat faster than larger candidates, putting her at a significant disadvantage. While others shivered and struggled, she found herself on the verge of hypothermia during several sessions. But she also discovered that her mental preparation had equipped her with strategies for dealing with extreme discomfort. She used meditation techniques to manage the pain, visualization exercises to maintain focus, and positive self-talk to push through moments when quitting seemed like the only rational choice. When other candidates looked ready to give up, she would quietly encourage them, reminding them why they were there and what they were working toward. The physical training sessions grew progressively more demanding. Log PT involved teams of candidates carrying 300-pound logs through various exercises designed to promote teamwork and shared suffering. Sarah's height made it difficult for her to maintain proper position during many of the exercises, forcing her teammates to compensate for her physical limitations. Some candidates began to grumble that she was holding back the team. Others recognized that her determination and positive attitude more than made up for any physical disadvantages. The division created tension that the instructors deliberately exploited, adding psychological pressure to the already overwhelming physical demands. During one particularly brutal session, Sarah's team was struggling with a log-carrying exercise that required them to run up a steep sand dune while maintaining perfect formation. They had failed the exercise 3 times, earning additional punishment laps each time. Some team members were beginning to question whether Sarah's presence was making success impossible. "Look," said Thompson, a former Marine who had emerged as an unofficial leader in the group, "no offense, Martinez, but you're throwing off our spacing. Maybe you should consider whether you're really cut out for this." Sarah felt a flash of anger, followed immediately by self-doubt. Was she being selfish by continuing when her limitations might be hurting her teammates? Was her determination actually a form of selfishness that put others at risk? Before she could respond, Davis, the same candidate she had helped during the ocean swim, stepped forward. "Thompson, Martinez has been carrying her weight and, then, some. She's helped half of us get through sessions we would have failed on our own. If you want to question someone's commitment, maybe look in a mirror." The confrontation was interrupted by Chief Rodriguez, who had been watching the entire exchange. "Interesting discussion, gentlemen. Let me add some perspective. Martinez's last 3 performance evaluations have ranked her in the top 5 candidates in this class. Her teamwork scores are the highest I've recorded in 2 years. And her refusal to quit when things get difficult is exactly the kind of mindset we're looking for in special warfare operators." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But if anyone thinks this training is too difficult, or if you feel like your teammates are holding you back, there's a bell right over there. Ring it 3 times and your struggles are over. Otherwise, shut up and get back to work." The log exercise resumed, but something had changed in the group dynamic. Sarah's teammates began to adjust their positioning and technique to accommodate her height rather than expecting her to conform to their approach. They discovered that her lower center of gravity actually provided stability during certain exercises, and her endurance allowed her to maintain performance when larger candidates were beginning to fade. More importantly, they began to understand what the instructors were really testing. It wasn't just physical capability, it was the ability to adapt, overcome obstacles, and work as a team regardless of individual limitations. Sarah embodied those qualities better than anyone else in the class. As the weeks progressed, the training grew more specialized and technically demanding. They learned maritime combat skills, practiced small unit tactics, and studied the kind of advanced military techniques that most sailors would never see. Sarah thrived in the academic portions of the training, often scoring highest on written exams and practical applications. But the physical challenges continued to push everyone to their limits. The notorious Hell Week 5.5 days of continuous training with minimal sleep and constant physical activity loomed ahead like a mountain that seemed impossible to climb. By the time Hell Week arrived, Sarah's class had been reduced from 24 candidates to 13. Those who remained had bonded through shared struggle and mutual respect. Sarah had emerged not just as a survivor, but as one of the class leaders, someone others looked to for inspiration when their own motivation flagged. Standing on the beach at the beginning of Hell Week, watching the sun set over an ocean that had already tested her in ways she never imagined, Sarah thought about how much she had changed since walking into that recruiter's office. She was stronger, more confident, and more aware of her own capabilities than ever before. But she also understood that the real tests lay ahead. Hell Week would determine who had the mental toughness to continue, and the advanced training that followed would test skills and judgment that could mean the difference between life and death in real-world operations. As the instructors began their final briefing before the most challenging week of training, Sarah felt a calm determination settle over her. She had proven she belonged here. Now she needed to prove she could excel. Hell Week began at sunset on a Sunday with the sound of machine gun blanks firing over the candidates' heads while they lay in their bunks. Sarah jolted awake to find instructors screaming orders, smoke filling the barracks, and chaos erupting all around her. This was the legendary beginning of 5 a half-days that would determine who had the mental fortitude to become a special warfare operator. Get outside. Move, move, move. The instructors herded the 13 remaining candidates onto the beach where the Pacific Ocean waited under a moonless sky. The water temperature had dropped to 58 degrees, and the surf was running higher than usual, conditions that would test even the most experienced swimmers. What followed was a blur of physical and mental torture designed to break anyone who wasn't completely committed. Surf torture sessions lasted for hours, with candidates sitting in the freezing water while instructors questioned their motivation and reminded them how easy it would be to quit. Log PT sessions continued around the clock, with the 300-pound logs becoming progressively harder to lift as exhaustion set in. But it was the sleep deprivation that proved most challenging for many candidates. By Tuesday morning, they had been allowed only 4 hours of sleep total. Simple tasks like tying shoes or following basic instructions became monumentally difficult. Several candidates began hallucinating, seeing things that weren't there and having conversations with people who existed only in their exhausted minds. Sarah found herself drawing on reserves of mental strength she didn't know she possessed. Her meditation practice helped her stay focused even when her brain felt like it was wrapped in cotton. Her visualization techniques allowed her to find moments of peace even in the midst of chaos. Most importantly, her commitment to her teammates kept her going when her own motivation faltered. During one particularly brutal surf torture session on Tuesday night, she noticed that one of her teammates, a quiet candidate named Williams who had been struggling since the beginning of the week, was showing signs of hypothermia. His lips were blue, his speech was slurred, and his movements had become uncoordinated. The instructors were deliberately ignoring Williams's condition, watching to see if he would have the self-awareness to seek medical attention or if his teammates would look out for him. Sarah made eye contact with Davis and Thompson, and they quietly moved to position themselves on either side of Williams, sharing their body heat while making it look natural. "Stay with us, Williams," Sarah whispered during a brief moment when the instructors weren't paying attention. "We're almost through this evolution. You can make it." Williams nodded weakly, but Sarah could see he was fading fast. She made a decision that could have ended her own training. During the next break between exercises, she approached the senior instructor. "Chief, Williams needs medical attention. He's showing signs of severe hypothermia." The instructor looked at her with surprise. Candidates were expected to suffer in silence and overcome their problems through willpower. Asking for medical help for a teammate was unusual and potentially risky. "Are you sure about that, Martinez? If Williams can't handle the cold water, maybe he doesn't belong here. Are you saying your teammate isn't tough enough for this training?" Sarah met his gaze steadily. "I'm saying that good teammates look out for each other, Chief. Williams has heart and determination, but he needs medical attention right now." The instructor studied Williams for a moment, then nodded to the medical corpsman. Williams was indeed suffering from hypothermia and needed immediate treatment. He was pulled from training for 6 hours to recover, which would normally result in automatic dismissal from the program. But Chief Rodriguez had been watching the entire interaction. After Williams recovered, he made an unusual decision. "Williams, you're back in training." Martinez's quick thinking and willingness to look out for a teammate probably saved your life. That's exactly the kind of judgment we need in operational situations. The incident became a turning point for the entire class. They realized that the instructors weren't just testing individual toughness, they were evaluating leadership, teamwork, and decision-making under extreme stress. Sarah's actions had demonstrated all three qualities. As Hell Week continued, the challenges became increasingly complex and demanding. The candidates faced maritime navigation exercises while running on no sleep, boat handling drills in dangerous surf conditions, and tactical problems that required clear thinking despite extreme exhaustion. Sarah's smaller size continued to present challenges during some evolutions, but her teammates had learned to adapt and compensate. More importantly, they had come to value her judgment and leadership. During navigation exercises, her attention to detail kept teams from getting lost. During tactical problems, her ability to think clearly under pressure led to successful mission completion. By Thursday, only 9 candidates remained in training. The others had either been injured, failed to meet performance standards, or simply decided they couldn't continue. Those who remained had been pushed beyond any limits they thought they had and were operating in a realm of pure mental determination. The final challenge of Hell Week was a 20-mile beach run carrying full gear and boat crews. The run began before dawn on Friday morning and was designed to test everything the candidates had learned about teamwork, endurance, and refusing to quit. Sarah's boat crew had gelled into a tight unit over the course of the week. They had learned to move as one organism, compensating for each other's strengths and weaknesses. When someone was struggling, the others picked up the slack. When someone excelled, they used that strength to help the entire team. The run began well, with all boat crews maintaining good pace and formation. But, as the miles accumulated and the sun rose higher, the physical toll began to show. One crew fell behind early when 2 of their members developed severe blisters. Another crew struggled with coordination problems caused by exhaustion and dehydration. Sarah's crew maintained steady progress through the first 15 miles, but then, disaster struck. Davis, who had been one of their strongest performers, suddenly collapsed with severe leg cramps. He tried to continue, but it was clear he couldn't maintain the pace needed to complete the evolution successfully. This was the ultimate test of teamwork. The crew could leave Davis behind and finish strong, ensuring their own success. Or they could adapt their strategy to keep the team together, risking failure for everyone. Sarah didn't hesitate. Thompson, take point position. Williams, you and I will support Davis on either side. We finish this together or not at all. Thompson looked skeptical. Martinez, if we slow down to help Davis, we might not make the time cutoff. We could all fail because of one person. We're not leaving anyone behind, Sarah replied firmly. That's not who we are, and it's not what this training is about. The decision proved to be both the hardest and most rewarding of the entire week. Supporting Davis while maintaining forward momentum required constant communication, shared effort, and creative problem solving. They had to redistribute weight, adjust their formation, and find ways to provide encouragement when their own reserves were nearly exhausted. But something remarkable happened during those final 5 miles. The crew discovered a level of teamwork and mutual support that transcended individual capabilities. They moved as a single unit, each person contributing exactly what was needed when it was needed. Davis found the strength to continue with their support, while the others found motivation in their commitment to him. They crossed the finish line together, well within the time limit, exhausted but triumphant. Chief Rodriguez was waiting at the finish line with an expression Sarah had never seen before, genuine pride mixed with respect. Outstanding, crew. That performance demonstrated everything we're looking for in special warfare operators. You faced an impossible choice and found a way to succeed without compromising your values or abandoning your teammates. Hell Week officially ended at sunset on Friday with a simple ceremony that marked one of the most significant accomplishments in military training. Of the 13 candidates who had started the week, 8 had successfully completed every evolution. They were exhausted, battered, and forever changed by the experience. But surviving Hell Week was only the beginning of their journey. The months that followed would test their technical skills, tactical knowledge, and ability to operate in real-world scenarios. The training became more specialized and dangerous, with live-fire exercises, advanced demolitions work, and complex mission planning. Sarah continued to excel in all areas of training. Her academic scores remained among the highest in the class, her physical performance continued to improve, and her leadership abilities became more evident with each passing week. She had proven that size and traditional measures of strength were far less important than determination, intelligence, and character. The other candidates had come to respect not just her abilities, but her judgment and integrity. When faced with difficult decisions during training scenarios, they often looked to her for guidance. When someone was struggling with a particular skill or concept, she was usually the first to offer help and support. The instructors had also taken notice. Chief Rodriguez began giving Sarah increasingly complex leadership roles during training exercises. She was selected to lead navigation exercises, plan tactical operations, and even train newer candidates who were just beginning the program. But the real validation of her abilities came during a joint training exercise with a SEAL team that was preparing for deployment. The exercise was designed to test the advanced students' ability to integrate with operational units and contribute meaningfully to real-world missions. Sarah's group was tasked with conducting a nighttime reconnaissance mission in support of a simulated hostage rescue operation. The mission required advanced swimming skills, precise navigation, covert movement, and detailed intelligence gathering. Failure could result in mission compromise and simulated casualties. The SEAL team leader, a veteran operator with multiple combat deployments, was initially skeptical about working with students, especially one who looked like she could barely handle the equipment she was carrying. But his attitude quickly changed as he watched Sarah's performance during the mission briefing and preparation phase. She asked insightful questions about enemy capabilities and terrain features. She identified potential problems with the initial plan and suggested modifications that improved mission security. Most importantly, she demonstrated a level of tactical understanding that impressed experienced operators. The mission itself went flawlessly. Sarah's team infiltrated the target area undetected, gathered the required intelligence, and provided accurate reports that enabled the SEAL team to plan their assault effectively. During the operation, Sarah's small size allowed her to access areas that would have been impossible for larger operators, providing crucial information about enemy positions. When the exercise concluded, the SEAL team leader approached Chief Rodriguez with high praise for Sarah's performance. "That student, Martinez, has better tactical instincts than some operators I've worked with downrange. You've got something special there." Word of the commendation spread quickly through the training command. Sarah had not only proven she could complete the training, she had demonstrated that she could contribute meaningfully to operational missions alongside the military's most elite units. But even as her confidence grew and her skills developed, Sarah remained focused on the ultimate goal. She wanted to graduate not just as someone who had survived the training, but as someone who was truly prepared to serve alongside special warfare operators in whatever challenges lay ahead. The final phase of training would test everything she had learned and determine whether she was ready for that responsibility. Advanced tactical scenarios, leadership evaluations, and comprehensive examinations would determine who among the remaining candidates would earn the right to wear the special warfare insignia. Standing on the beach where her journey had begun, looking out at an ocean that had tested her in every way imaginable, Sarah reflected on how much she had changed. She was stronger, more confident, and more capable than she had ever imagined possible. But, more importantly, she had discovered what it truly meant to be part of something bigger than herself. The doubters who had questioned her ability were still out there. But now she had something they couldn't ignore, proof that determination, character, and intelligence were more important than any physical measurement. She had earned her place among warriors, and she was ready for whatever came next. The final graduation ceremony was scheduled for a crisp morning in November, 6 months after Sarah had first set foot on the Coronado beach. Of the original 24 candidates who had started the program, only 6 remained. They had survived Hell Week, mastered advanced tactical skills, and proven themselves worthy of joining the ranks of special warfare operators. But 3 days before graduation, an unexpected visitor arrived at the training command. Colonel James Morrison, a decorated Army Special Forces officer and current Pentagon liaison for Joint Special Operations, had come to observe the final training exercises. He was known throughout the special operations community for his combat leadership and his role in developing new training standards for elite units. Colonel Morrison's visit was unusual for several reasons. Pentagon officials rarely took interest in individual training classes, and Army officers almost never visited Navy facilities unless there was a specific joint operation in the works. His presence suggested that something significant was happening, though none of the students knew what it might be. The colonel's first briefing to the graduating class was straightforward. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to observe your final exercises and evaluate potential candidates for a classified joint operation. The mission will require operators who can think creatively, adapt to unexpected situations, and work effectively with other services. Your performance over the next 3 days will determine whether any of you are ready for that level of responsibility." Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. After months of training focused on proving she belonged in special warfare, the possibility of immediate operational deployment was both thrilling and daunting. She had worked harder than she ever thought possible to reach this point, but real-world operations would test her in ways that no training scenario could replicate. The first exercise was a complex maritime infiltration scenario that required the students to plan and execute a mission with minimal guidance from instructors. They were given a target location, basic intelligence about enemy capabilities, and a 12-hour timeline to develop and implement their plan. Sarah found herself naturally taking a leadership role during the planning phase. Her classmates had come to respect her tactical judgment and ability to see problems from multiple angles. She suggested an infiltration route that others had overlooked, identified potential complications that could compromise the mission, and developed contingency plans for various scenarios. Colonel Morrison watched the planning session with interest, taking detailed notes on each student's contributions. He was particularly intrigued by Sarah's approach to problem-solving and her ability to build consensus among strong personalities who were accustomed to being in charge. The execution phase of the exercise began at sunset. Sarah's team had to swim nearly 2 miles in open ocean, navigate to a precise location using only compass and natural landmarks, conduct reconnaissance on a simulated enemy facility, and extract without detection. The margin for error was minimal, and failure would result in mission compromise and potential casualty. As the team prepared to enter the water, Colonel Morrison approached Chief Rodriguez. "Tell me about Martinez. Her file is impressive, but I want your assessment based on direct observation." Rodriguez had been evaluating candidates for 8 years, but his response was immediate and unequivocal. "Sir, Martinez is the finest candidate I've trained. She's not the strongest or the fastest, but she has something more important: she makes everyone around her better. Her teammates trust her judgment, follow her lead, and perform above their individual capabilities when she's in charge." The colonel nodded, making additional notes. He had commanded elite units in 3 different combat zones and understood that technical skills could be taught, but leadership and character were much rarer qualities. The infiltration mission proceeded flawlessly. Sarah's navigation was precise, keeping the team on course despite challenging conditions and limited visibility. When they encountered an unexpected patrol boat that wasn't part of the original scenario, she quickly adapted the plan, finding an alternative route that avoided detection while maintaining mission timeline. During the reconnaissance phase, her small size again proved advantageous. She was able to position herself in locations that provided superior observation while remaining concealed from enemy sentries. Her detailed intelligence reports gave the team a complete picture of enemy capabilities and positions. But the real test came during extraction. As the team prepared to leave the target area, one of her teammates suffered equipment failure that left him unable to navigate effectively in the dark water. The safe option would have been to abort the mission and call for emergency assistance. But Sarah recognized that operational missions rarely offered safe options. She made the decision to buddy swim with the impaired teammate, sharing her equipment and guiding him through the 2-mile return swim. This significantly increased the difficulty and danger for both of them, but it ensured mission success and team integrity. Colonel Morrison had been monitoring the exercise from a command boat, watching through night vision equipment as Sarah guided her teammate through increasingly challenging surf conditions. When both swimmers finally reached the extraction point, exhausted but successful, he turned to Chief Rodriguez with an expression of genuine amazement. "In 15 years of special operations, I've rarely seen that level of tactical judgment from someone fresh out of training." She had multiple opportunities to take the easy path or prioritize her own safety, but she consistently made decisions that served the mission and her team. The second exercise was even more challenging, a land-based scenario that required the students to plan and execute a direct action mission against a defended target. They would be facing role players from active SEAL teams, operators with real combat experience who understood how to make training scenarios as realistic as possible. Sarah was selected to serve as mission commander, responsible for overall planning and execution. It was a significant honor, but also a tremendous responsibility. The other students were all exceptional operators, but they would be looking to her for leadership during the most complex scenario of their training. The target was a simulated terrorist facility where hostages were being held. The mission required precise timing, coordinated movement, and split-second decision-making. Intelligence was limited and potentially unreliable, meaning the team would need to adapt quickly to changing conditions. During the planning phase, Sarah demonstrated the leadership skills she had developed throughout training. She solicited input from all team members, incorporated their expertise into the mission plan, and clearly communicated roles and responsibilities. But she also made the hard decisions that commanders must make, choosing courses of action that balanced risk and reward. The mission began at dawn with a helicopter insertion that placed the team several kilometers from the target. They had to move through challenging terrain while avoiding enemy patrols, establish observation positions, and wait for the optimal moment to assault the facility. Colonel Morrison accompanied the exercise controllers, observing every aspect of the team's performance. He was particularly interested in how Sarah managed the stress of command while maintaining situational awareness and tactical effectiveness. As the team approached the target, they discovered that the intelligence had been partially incorrect. There were more defenders than expected, and the hostages were being held in a different location than originally reported. This was exactly the kind of scenario that separated good operators from exceptional ones. Sarah quickly assessed the new situation and modified the plan accordingly. She repositioned team members to account for the additional threats, identified the actual location of the hostages, and coordinated a synchronized assault that neutralized the defenders while protecting the civilians. The assault itself was a masterpiece of small unit tactics. Each team member executed their role flawlessly, but it was Sarah's real-time command and control that made success possible. She coordinated movement, called out threats, and made instantaneous decisions that kept the team moving toward their objective. When the exercise concluded with all hostages safely rescued and all defenders neutralized, Colonel Morrison had seen enough. He requested a private meeting with Sarah immediately after the debrief. "Martinez, I've been observing special operations units for more than a decade, and I've rarely seen a more impressive display of tactical leadership. Your performance over the past 3 days has been exceptional by any standard, but it's particularly remarkable for someone who hasn't even graduated from training yet." Sarah felt a surge of pride, but also curiosity about where the conversation was heading. "Thank you, sir. The training here has been outstanding, and I've had excellent teammates throughout the program." The colonel smiled. "Spoken like a true leader, crediting your team for success. That's exactly the kind of mindset we need for the operation I'm planning." He went on to explain that he was assembling a joint task force for a classified mission that would require operators who could work effectively with multiple services and allied nations. The mission would test everything she had learned in training and more, requiring adaptability, cultural sensitivity, and advanced tactical skills. "I want you on my team, Martinez. You'll be working alongside some of the most experienced special operations personnel in the military, including several who have been doing this job longer than you've been alive. Are you ready for that level of responsibility?" Sarah thought about everything that had led to this moment, the doubts, the challenges, the gradual building of skills and confidence. She thought about her father's words about becoming someone worthy of others' trust. Most of all, she thought about the teammates who had supported her and the instructors who had pushed her to exceed her own expectations. "Yes, sir. I'm ready." The graduation ceremony the following day was both an ending and a beginning. Sarah stood with her 5 classmates as Chief Rodriguez presented them with their special warfare insignia, officially marking their transition from students to operators. It had been a journey that tested every aspect of their character, but they had proven themselves worthy of joining an elite community. But, for Sarah, graduation was just the first step. Within weeks, she would be deploying with Colonel Morrison's task force, putting her skills to the test in real-world operations where the stakes couldn't be higher. As she stood on the beach where her journey had begun, now wearing the insignia that represented months of struggle and growth, Sarah reflected on how much had changed. The girl who had walked into a recruiter's office with determination but limited experience had become a leader whom experienced operators trusted with their lives. The doubters who had questioned whether someone her size could handle military life had been proven wrong in the most convincing way possible. She hadn't just survived the training, she had excelled at every level and earned recognition from some of the most respected leaders in special operations. But Sarah understood that proving herself was an ongoing process. Every mission, every challenge, every opportunity to lead would require her to demonstrate the qualities that had brought her this far. The special warfare community had accepted her based on her performance, but maintaining that acceptance would require continued excellence. 3 months later, Sarah found herself in a classified location, preparing for her first operational mission with Colonel Morrison's task force. The team included operators from Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces, Marine Raiders, and Air Force Pararescue, the most elite units from each service. When she was introduced to the team as their Maritime Operations Specialist and Deputy Mission Commander, there were a few surprised looks. Some of the operators had heard about the small Navy operator who had impressed Pentagon officials, but seeing her in person still came as a shock. But their skepticism didn't last long. During mission planning, Sarah's tactical expertise and attention to detail quickly earned their respect. During training exercises, her performance consistently met or exceeded the standards set by much more experienced operators. The mission itself was a complex operation that required infiltration into denied territory, intelligence gathering, and coordination with local allied forces. Sarah's role was to plan and execute the maritime phase of the operation while serving as Colonel Morrison's principal advisor on all tactical matters. When the mission launched, Sarah found herself doing exactly what she had dreamed about since first deciding to join the military, serving alongside the best warriors in the world, contributing her skills to operations that truly mattered. The girl who had been told she was too small to make a difference was now helping plan missions that could affect international security. The operation was a complete success, with Sarah's maritime expertise proving crucial to mission accomplishment. When Colonel Morrison debriefed the Pentagon on mission results, he made special mention of her performance and recommended her for immediate promotion and advanced training. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from her teammates, experienced operators who had initially been skeptical but who now spoke of her with genuine respect and admiration. They had worked alongside many warriors over the years, but few had impressed them as much as the quiet operator who proved every day that determination and character mattered more than any physical measurement. Standing on the deck of the ship that would take them home, looking out at an ocean that had challenged and shaped her in ways she never could have imagined, Sarah thought about the journey that had brought her to this point. She had faced every doubt, overcome every obstacle, and earned her place among warriors through dedication and performance. The recruiting poster had promised that the Navy would make her stronger. But it had done something far more important. It had given her the opportunity to discover strength she never knew she had, and to use that strength in service of something bigger than herself. Colonel Morrison approached her as she stood at the rail, looking out at the endless expanse of water. "Martinez, I've got another mission coming up in 6 months. It's going to be even more challenging than this one. Interested?" Sarah smiled, feeling the same surge of determination that had carried her through every challenge she had faced. "Yes, sir. I'm ready for whatever comes next." And she was. The doubts that had once seemed so overwhelming now felt like distant memories. She had proven to herself and everyone else that strength came in many forms, and that the most important battles were won not with muscle, but with heart, determination, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. The colonel had witnessed her outshine operators with years more experience, proving that the most valuable warriors weren't necessarily the biggest or strongest, but those who refused to quit and consistently made everyone around them better. Her journey was far from over. There would be more missions, more challenges, and more opportunities to prove herself. But Sarah Martinez had already accomplished something remarkable. She had transformed herself from someone others doubted into someone they chose to follow into battle. The strength that had been questioned was now beyond doubt.